and welcome to our Learner Variability Office Hours hosted by the Learner Variability Project here at Digital Promise. My name is Wendy Shao, and I'm excited to be able to welcome you all today. Before we get started, I have a few housekeeping items to address. First, we would love to know where all of you are from and who you are, so please take a moment to introduce yourself in the chat. We will be recording today's office hours and we'll share a link to the recording following the webinar. And during today's webinar, if you experience any audio difficulties or want to switch your audio preferences, you can find this feature at the bottom left of your screen. And although many of you submitted questions for our speakers beforehand, you will also have the opportunity to submit questions for today's presenters by clicking the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. You may submit questions or comments at any time, and we will try to address as many of them during our time as possible. Finally, I will be available if you have any technical issues, so please message me or the panelists via the chat function if you run into any difficulties. And now I will turn it over to my colleague, Jessica Jackson, to kick us off.
Thanks, Wendy. Welcome, everyone. Today, we are excited to be hosting our second Learner Variability Office Hours. My colleague, Wendy Zhao, is helping run the webinar, as she mentioned, and will be monitoring the chat, and I will be your moderator. So today, we are continuing the conversation around what parents and caregivers can do to support social and emotional learning at home. Some of you are joining us from the EdWeb community and may have tuned in to the webinar yesterday hosted by our colleague Barbara Pape in partnership with Learning Heroes. Some of you may be here for the first time or as part of the larger Digital Promise community. Whatever your connection to our project, we are glad you are here. Today, I am super excited to be introducing Vidula Plant and Katie Mucci. These two educators are part of the Practitioner Advisory Board for the Learner Variability Project. And we work together along with a group of 10 other educators from across the country to share best practices for supporting learner variability in action across many different contexts. And so both of these educators do a lot to support students and families around social and emotional learning, whether it's in their classroom. So as Wendy mentioned, you can add questions for them in the Q&A feature, but we'll also be asking them some questions that folks submitted as part of their registration. So let me start by telling you a little bit about each of them. So Vidula is a national board certified teacher with 22 years experience teaching and learning from her middle school students. After teaching English language arts for 18 years, Vidula Academy, the 6th grade literacy class she now teaches. Middle School Academy focuses on building academic, digital, and social literacy skills through project-based learning. She's worked at the state and national level on development committees for students and teachers. She's a Folger Teaching Shakespeare Institute Fellow, and this year, as a fellow with the NEA Teacher Leadership Institute, Vidula seeks to innovate with stakeholders to create a school schedule that is responsive to working conditions and provides systematic support for student and teacher growth. She also received the VFW Massachusetts Teacher of the Year Award in 2015 and the Sontag Prize in Education in 2020. Katie has 14 years of teaching experience in grades 3 through 6 and is currently teaching 4th grade in Bethel Park, Pennsylvania. She's also taught in North Carolina and Virginia. She was selected as a finalist for the Pennsylvania State Teacher of the Year and was chosen as Elementary Teacher of the Year in the Prince William County, Virginia in 2013. Katie is Google 2 certified, holds a principal license, and currently sits on the InStoy Pennsylvania Executive Board. And she also recently was awarded a all-star teacher from her, you have to remind me where it's from, Katie.
It was from the Pittsburgh Pirates.
Pittsburgh Pirates, that's right. For just the dedication that she's shown in both to her students and supporting colleagues through this transition. So welcome both of you. We want to start today by actually talking a little bit about the Learner Variability Project and showing you the Navigator, and then we'll jump into questions. And so you guys can feel free to chime in as I go through some of this. But when we talk about learner variability, we are really talking about, we're looking at the whole child. And so when we look at this whole, talking about factors that impact student learning around content, cognition, social and emotional learning, and student background. And as we think about all those, when we talk about learner variability, we're thinking about how all those factors are connected, how they impact students, and how within different contexts, some students may do well in some things and be challenged by others. And so learner variability is just this idea that every child is unique and their ways that they need to be supported and nurtured can vary across contexts. And so the Learner Variability Navigator has taken all the research that's out there on these factors and on strategies that support those factors and put them into a free online app. And so if you go to lvp.digitalpromiseglobal.org, you can see we have 6 different learner models to choose from. So since Katie and Vidula both work within this learner model, we'll start here. So here you have the factor map. And as you look here, you can see all the factors related to cognition, to literacy, social and emotional learning, and student background. And as you hover over different factors, the factors that are connected stay highlighted and the other ones get grayed out. So this is really important because this shows you how a lot of factors are connected. And so when you think about social and emotional learning, you can look at the factors here and look at how they're connected to other factors and how this can be impacting students in their current context. And another thing to think about is their background, because right now our students are at home. And so how their environment at home, how they're responding to adverse experiences like missing out on seeing their friends and their teachers, all of that can impact how they're feeling socially and emotionally as well. And so when you click on one of these factors, you can learn more about how that factor is connected through this factor connection wheel. It also tells you a little bit more about the research behind this factor and includes measures and references. And so these are assessments that can be given around this factor. Keep in mind, some assessments are ones that are typically administered by school psychologists or licensed professionals, but they are the measurements that are available. And then also you have strategies here that can support. And so what's great is, as educators, often we are looking for strategies to support our students. And so when you come here, you can select, what factors you're most interested in, and it will filter the strategies and show you ones that support those factors. And so when it comes to emotion, one of the social and emotional strategies that we know research shows can mitigate the impact of emotions is discussing emotions. And so when you click on these strategies, you can see examples of what that might look like in a classroom. You can see products that include this. There are also resources listed here that can support this and other factors that this strategy supports. And so this can be a great resource if you're looking to help share strategies with parents, because as educators, you may be familiar with a lot of these strategies, but parents may not be. They don't speak educator speak or know the research behind this. And so another feature that we have with our Navigator is the ability to make a workspace. And so in these workspaces, you can identify strategies and group them in a way that's more accessible for parents. So this is one that we designed in partnership with Learning Heroes, and it's designed for parents, and it includes strategies that support your child emotionally, strategies that support the ability to focus, and also strategies that can support math and literacy that are things that could be easy for parents to do at home. And so this can be a great resource to share directly with parents, or you can create your own. And so quickly I'll share one that Katie made. And this is one, and we can drop links for both of these in the chat. So if you want to share these. So Katie made this one, and it includes a video of her kind of walking through some of these strategies and how parents can use these strategies at home. And if you like this workspace, you can add it, you can share it with other people, you can duplicate it and reorganize it and put your own links and resources in. So there's lots of ways you can modify these to fit your needs. So that's just a quick tour of the Navigator, which you can get through by going to lvp.digitalpromiseglobal.org. And we'll talk a little more about workspaces and how to make them towards the end, but I would like to jump in now to some questions. And I'd love to start by letting both Katie and Vidula just share a little bit about some of the practices they already have in place with their students and families, especially as they've transitioned to distance learning. So Katie, if you want to kick us off here.
Sure. Hi, everyone. As far as connecting with parents, I feel like my, transition to distance learning, I've really become a facilitator with my parents. My relationship with my parents has grown stronger, and I've really been looking for ways to reach them. One of the ways I did that was I created a Facebook group for the parents, and I did that because I know most of my parents use Facebook. And it was just a really easy way. I wanted it to be easy. I didn't want it to be something extra. So something they're already using that I could reach out to them and continue updating, and also have a way for them to reach back to me. And so I've used Facebook a lot with that. And then as you can see on your screen, I do a mental health check-in with my students on a regular basis, but I thought I had the idea to do this with my parents because my students are going to get an experience based on how well my parents are facilitating the lessons that I've sent to them. So I've really transitioned to, yes, I want to make sure my kids are okay, meaning my own students, not children you hear screaming in the background, but my own students. I want to make sure they're okay, but I also have to make sure my parents are okay. So really that became the first and foremost priority. Yes, I want to teach my kids. I want them to get the academics that they need, but I need to make sure that they were okay and that they're okay through this whole process. So Facebook has been an avenue that I've been able to do that. I use other tools like ClassDojo and Google Classroom, things like that. But Facebook Messenger has really allowed me to individualize my conversation. I can easily reach out. I like to use the filters. I put a pizza over my face. The kids think that's hilarious. And just a, hey, how are you? Wear crazy hair and sing happy birthday. Things like that continue that individual connection.
That's awesome. Thank you, Katie. And I love this picture. So of, and I've seen others that you shared where you're always like dressing up and stuff. So tell us a little bit about why that's important right now.
Yeah, sure. So that is I felt like when we immediately closed school, there was this, everybody was going, wow, I don't know what to do. Our district said we're going to take a few weeks off, gather ourselves and create a plan. So during that time, I came up with the idea of doing a midday math session, and I recruited other teachers in my building. Each one of us took a day of the week, and we presented a lesson from bedtimemath.org, it's a free resource as well. So I would get on and I would just teach a math lesson, and the students, I used that Facebook Live. I've been doing a lot of lessons with Facebook Live actually. And then there's that interactive piece, like the students can comment and they can show me their answers. I can say, how are you? They can respond. But I also find that just, I teach elementary school, so keeping learning fun, wearing a green wig, or just, on May the 4th, that's Star Wars Day, I dressed up as Princess Leia, and I did a read aloud on that day. So just ways to keep them engaged and keep learning fun, and let them see, like, hey, it's okay. Like, even though we're sad and we're scared and we're stressed, like, Mrs. Mucci is still a little bit crazy, and we're still going to have fun, and it's still going to be okay.
Oh, that's great. I love that. Thank you. Okay, Vidula, would you like to share a little bit about kind of your experience?
Sure. For us, we had our last day of school on March 12th, and by the following week, we were in phase 1, which is engagement with students, enrichment work. So our district was going by state guidelines. I teach in Massachusetts, and for the next 3 weeks, we were going to be simply offering enrichment activities and then monitoring completion. We were looking at that phase to identify, are the kids okay? Are the parents okay? Is everyone okay? And so I borrowed a choice board that a fellow teacher in Acton, Boxborough had created. I do a lot of Facebook networking too, but mainly for professional groups. And so a friend of mine had created this with many other options. And I whittled it down, added a few options of my own, and I created an enrichment choice menu that really had a balance of introvert activities, extrovert activities, group, single. So kids could kind of choose what they wanted. There were options for them to pop in on a panda cam, watch some animals, cook something if they wanted, learn something new. And what I asked them to do to check engagement on my end, and you can kind of see that on the right-hand side, is post in Google Classroom a sentence or two about what they did and what they thought about it. And so it allowed me to check in with them, and then weekly we were, I think in the first 2 weeks, I didn't hold a large group meets with my 6th graders, but eventually we moved to Zoom or to Google Meets once a week for meetings. So the choice board lasted for about 3 weeks, and then we went into phase 2 as our state Department of Education gave us guidelines. They changed from enrichment to skill review. So at under high school level, no new content. The 3 humanities classes, geography, English, and middle school academy, which is what I teach, so it's a literacy class, we combined together and created virtual trips to different countries. We picked China first and India second, and then we had them work through a series of activities. And again, we were really focused on identifying skills, but also providing a common experience, which we had a lot of positive feedback from parents about, because here, instead of their kids having to go to, as in middle school, the kids take 8 different classes, instead of going to 8 different classes, at least for these 3 classes, they were together and the kids had one-stop shopping. So we actually created a virtual humanities Google Classroom that every student joined. And that was another way to monitor engagement. Are the kids okay? Are they following instructions? Are they where they need to be? And then a common place for us to put the assignments and communicate with students. So for us at our district, because Google Classroom has been used from, I think, from grade 3 and up, and they've been using it for a few years, this was our existing tool that we just relied very heavily on. The change was that they weren't using it in the classroom with us there, so we had to think a lot about synchronous and asynchronous learning. So I'll say that when we entered phase 3, which started in it started May 11th. Phase 3 started May 11th, and that was moving from skill review, no new content, to new content allowed and power standards identified that were going to be hit. So at that point, the virtual humanities class disbanded, and we divided back out into separate subjects because some of the power standards really were very targeted. And so I moved in middle school academy to revamp a kindness unit that I had started. And I do want to mention here, so my class is academic, digital, and social emotional skills. So throughout, I embed SEL in my class. And so the kindness unit, for example, really looks at why do we need to be kind to each other. Prior to this, in second trimester, we had been studying Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and we'd done a series of activities and projects. You know, sixth graders need to be active, but, you know, really trying to understand why it is that, you know, to be ready to learn, to be ready to grow, we need to try to help each other stay in a good place. And so for the kindness unit, I supported parents and students by putting material out, but also connecting with our liaisons, the special educators who were working one-on-one with students and who perhaps got more questions from parents because sometimes students needed more structure and guidance, but we have plenty of general ed as well as special education students that just need help with streamlining. And so working towards one-stop shopping in terms of, like, I think even from week 1 to week 2 of the new learning, I moved from like menu boards like this, which gave students options but didn't really give them, you know, sufficient guidance for new learning. I moved to slideshows, which let them go step by step and kind of guided them more gently through. What should I say? Oh, one other thing I do want to mention, that up until phase 3, we didn't do any assessment, but what we were looking for was engagement. And our team, our teaching team of 6th grade teachers, we meet once a week and we bring up who do we see not engaging. And if multiple teachers are seeing a student that's not participating, instead of having 6 or 7 teachers reach out to a parent, we have a student engagement forum where we log it, but we also meet once a week with admin and we bring it up to administration. We say, you know, we haven't heard from Sally for, you know, the last 2 weeks. Is she okay? And then admin or our school adjustment counselor reaches out, so that the point of initial contact with parents, unless we're hearing from them, the reaching out to parents isn't a number of people. Just trying to be sensitive around this time. You know, there could be many reasons why a parent isn't communicating, and, you know, depending on what, I mean, just like the gaps with equity and access are just huge. So thinking about that too, my school created an engagement rubric. And so third trimester is assessed, but it's a pass/incomplete, and it's based on, are they engaging? And the district created a series of requirements or potentials for engagement. So could be that the student is attending the synchronous class that each teacher offers once a week. Could be that the student is reaching out by email to a teacher to ask a question. Could be the student is responding to a question. And it could be that the student has simply not been responding for a while, but is on an improvement curve. So there's potential there for every student to be able to do some or all of these things and be engaged. And of course, we have students on every, you know, they're across the range. So some students are in hyper ready to learn mode. They want more. I get emails every week. I'm done. What can I do next? I also get students who need extensions. And I also have some students who maybe are not engaging one week, but will the next.
Yeah, so you kind of naturally led into my next question, which was around what are some of the ways that you're communicating with parents, and talking with both of you. I know it's very different at the middle school level versus the elementary level. And so I know you touched on some of that in your answer, Vidula, but Katie, I'd love to hear kind of what are some ways that you're communicating with parents right now, and ways specifically that support SEL.
So I have had several parent-only Zoom meetings. I did want to add that I'm Zooming with my class once a week. It's non-instructional, just a, hey, how are you? We do, you know, 4th graders, we've been doing show and tell, and they're like, we get to do show and tell. And we end each class meeting with a dance party. And it's just kind of for fun and just to check in and have some normalcy in our lives.
But I've also been doing a few parent Zoom meetings, parent only. I specifically say I don't want the children to hear you. I have it at 9 o'clock at night. Hopefully the kids are in bed or not around. And I do a mental health check-in with them too. Just, you know, how can I help you? What can I do to help you? Let me tell you how it really is. This is the reality of where we are. I want to make sure you're okay, you know, making sure that they have toilet paper and they're able to feed their families. And those things have to come first before I can even expect them to help assist their child in learning. So that has been huge. I'm using Facebook. I'm using Class Dojo the messaging app. I've given my parents my phone number. I know. District's like, don't give parents your phone number. You know what? I can screen if I need to. If I don't want to answer that phone call, I can wait and I can answer it later. I am not available to my parents 24/7, but I need to be available to my parents when they have time. Some of them are working full time. Some of them are essential learners or essential workers. Some of them have been laid off. And we just have to be flexible and adjust to that. So I do have some parents who text me. I've been fortunate that they haven't taken advantage of that, but I'm also comfortable with just not responding or saying I'll get back to you later. Email, Google Classroom. I just try to give every parent, here are all the opportunities. If you need me, I am here. Please reach out to me.
Yeah, I think that's so great. And I love that you have the parent Zoom calls too, where they can kind of ask questions or get clarity that they need. And when I was talking with Vidula earlier, we were just saying how, some friends of mine have middle schoolers and they're like, we got so many emails in the beginning because we have 3 kids and they each have 6 teachers and we couldn't keep up with all the emails. And so I think it's really interesting, you can speak a little more to this, Vidula, around just how you guys have worked to streamline your communication so that it's not overwhelming parents, which I think is kind of different in the middle school arena versus the elementary.
Right. So our first line is, if we bring up a student at team, we ask admin or the school adjustment counselor to check in on the family to make sure that everything's okay. I mean, I'm not going to reach out to a parent to say Johnny didn't do his homework if, there's somebody in the hospital. There are bigger issues, right, that people are dealing with right now, and we're very aware of that. And like KD, some of my students also have parents who are essential workers or not. I mean, I think many of us are in that same, boat. So once admin checks in with the parent, if the parent has just reported everything's good, trying to help my child get involved, then what we do as a team is we'll designate one of us to reach out to the student. And, given that we're a team of 5 core teachers, but there are 8 of us, including specialists, there's usually one teacher who has a rapport with the kid, from the school year. We've developed something. And so we'll do one-on-one Zooms or Google Meets with a student. I've done several of these over the past few weeks just to get them to feel comfortable and feel like they're in the right place and they know what to do. Sometimes it's logistical stuff that's tough, and sometimes it's just, Marzano and Hattie both say, like, self-efficacy, like this belief that you can do something, that's really connected to student learning. And so sometimes they just need that confidence. And I'd say, for teachers, for students, for parents, the confidence, like having the confidence to be able to reach out or to ask and to have that validated, like Katie, you do with your parent meetings, which I think is really great. But also in emails and other ways, just responding and being communicative. With middle school, I have 114 students this year. So I think that for us, just trying to keep the teams working with different students. I'll work with all my students if I need to, but it can be overwhelming if a parent has 4 kids and each kid has 7 teachers and each teacher is trying to reach out. So
yeah, I think that's a great point. Also, I'd love to hear kind of how you're working with parents who have students, maybe they are diagnosed with a disability, have an IEP, need additional supports. Like, how are you kind of working to support some of those students and parents?
Well, for me, it's about collaboration, and this will answer, my answer to Linda's question in the chat as well. When I'm having an issue, a student who's struggling or who has needs beyond what I can provide, I'm definitely calling in the experts. Our school has a school social worker, so contacting her, getting the principal involved. Anyone that child, like the doula said, anyone that child has a relationship with, I am calling and I'm saying, hey, can you reach out to this child? This child might just need a phone call and say, hey, I miss you. How are you? So that's been something I've been doing a lot. There's one child that I contact every single day. I call on a video chat through Facebook Messenger every single day and just say, hey, how you doing? What's your plan for the next hour? Okay, I'll call back in an hour and see what you got done. Good luck. I know you can do this. I know you can do this. And kind of just giving them that positive talk. And maybe I have some sort of silly hair or whatever. But having that personal connection, some kids need that. Now, I have kids who haven't needed me from the get-go. I mean, I still check in with them just because I love them and miss them and all of that good stuff. But some of my kids don't need me. They are great online learners. They don't need me. I also want to add that, when you're dealing with parents who don't speak English, I have worked with many of those students and many of those parents, and that can be a little bit more tricky. But I find that text messaging is the easiest way to communicate. You can easily, translate. You can switch your key. I have a Spanish keyboard. I switch my keyboard back and forth so I can type in Spanish. And that's just something that I have found it's right there in their hand. That's a lot easier than an email. And to be very short and simple in your directions with all parents, especially if you have a parent who has 2 or 3 children in the district, they don't need to read paragraph long emails from every teacher that their child has.
Yeah, so true. Yeah, Vidula, how about you?
With us, when we meet as a team weekly and we bring up students of concern, the school adjustment counselor and our dean of students attends that meeting. And we have connections to a social worker, but that's followed up through the dean of students or the school adjustment counselor. We also, our liaisons attend. So like the 6th grade team meeting that we have where we're discussing students, everyone or almost everyone who has anything to do with grade students is there. On the side, just to the proactive piece, is when I'm planning, I send my materials to liaisons to review with a special education lens so that they can get back to me and let me know if they need, the words to be separated more. I try to include UDL principles, like I'll have images, videos, text, and a combination of options so students can access and access multiple times. So there are different exposures for every kind of, learner. The other piece I'd say is that I have the Google Classroom I use. I really like Google Classroom for this reason. Well, many reasons, but this one, I've invited all of the liaisons and our Learning Center teacher who helps kids who are general ed and that need a little bit more structure. They're all co-teachers in my Google Classroom. So I post things in advance and they can see them and they know they're coming. And I try to use a predictable structure so the entire assignment is in place. And so the more I communicate, and I think Katie, you mentioned communication and collaboration. So the more people, we're a team for the students. And so if a parent reaches out and says that they're struggling, then, or the child is struggling, we have a few different ways to intervene. And as a team, if we make a material, like one of my colleagues made a screencastify about how to use Google Calendar. She shared it with all of us, and she lets us know if she's gone through it with the kids. I do the same thing. I use Flipgrid. I was using it before remote learning started, but it's been a great way to see my kids and for them to see each other. The last video they did welcoming the new 5th graders, they were each making their little clips. It has 500 views, right? I have 114 kids, but they're really into that as part of their engagement. So once the kids know how to do that, I let my colleagues know that you can use Flipgrid. I've done a teacher training through my district, but just trying to be proactive to work with the team to share information. And then when individual parents come out asking for help, referring them, contacting them. I've called parents too. But most often at the middle school level, it's asking the parent to get the child onto a Zoom meet or a Google Meet so that we can help them, right? It's the meeting, the partnership there. It's just a different way of partnering.
One of the things that came up on the EdWeb webinar last night was just the importance of listening to parents and also kind of recognizing that they don't necessarily, speak the lingo that we often use around, social and emotional things like executive function or growth mindset and things like that. So I love to hear just, when you listen to parents, like what are some of the challenges that they're facing and kind of how are you talking to them or equipping them with strategies to use?
Well, I couldn't agree with that more. The fact that they don't understand some of the words that we're using and the phrases we're throwing around. I love the navigator that you presented earlier for that, to be able to, you can pick one particular child and maybe what the focus is for that child and then strategies that support that. And then I can share out those strategies with that individual parent. I mean, we talk about individualized learning at the elementary level, and this really is a true testament to that. How can we individualize learning for that one particular child? And really just hearing, like you said, hearing the parent and saying, I hear you. I know I've dealt with that. I know your child does that in school. Sometimes I'll say, yeah, my 5-year-old does the same thing. He doesn't listen to me either. So I know what you're saying, validating their concerns, and supporting them and saying, I got you. What do you need from me? Do you want me to I can be the heavy. I can call your child at 4 o'clock and say, why didn't you do your work? With love from my heart, of course, but I'm happy to do that for you. What do you need from me? Do you need for me not to send you 5 emails? What do you need? I've also used Google Forms to kind of create like 5 or 6 just questions. Am I sending too many emails? Are you not hearing from me enough? What do you need from me? And that's been helpful feedback for me as well.
That's great. Well, another kind of topic that came up, and a lot of people asked this in their registration, was just how are you talking to kids about COVID-19, and are you having those conversations, or how are you sharing things with parents about that? And how has that come up with your students?
I think, and they talked about this in the EdWeb from last night. I tell my students, I know I had a rough day today. For some reason, I think I started my Zoom meeting last week with this. For some reason, I just had a rough day today. I don't know why. I was sad. I missed you guys. I went for a walk. I felt a little better. But, really being real, letting them know that it's okay to feel sad and we don't have to pretend and be happy and joke and laugh all the time. So just checking in on their emotions. I know on my workspace that I created for the parents too, setting aside time to have conversations about your emotions. How are you feeling? Tell me how you're feeling. Or journaling. I have my students send me a weekly summary email. Tell me something you learned this week and what are you looking forward to next week? What's your goal for next week? And just how are you doing? What do you need from me? Answer those questions in an email. I mean, that is also working on their letter writing. They're doing Dear Mrs. Mucci, and they're writing from you love your friend, so-and-so. But being able to have those conversations about emotions, and telling the parents hey, this is actually part of education. I know that it doesn't seem like it because it's not math, but this is something that we teachers do in the classroom. So here's how you can, replicate that at home.
I did want to share this workspace. This is one that we did in conjunction with Turnaround for Children, and it really focuses on strategies that support students who are affected by adverse experiences, right? And so as we think about some of all the things that have changed as a result of COVID-19, a lot of children experience that as an adverse experience. And so this workspace we can also include in the chat, and it includes strategies for the different age groups that support that. And so, of course, discussing emotions and journaling. Book clubs is also one here that I know is something you've done, Katie, and mindfulness breaks. But there's also links here that can be helpful for those of you watching who may need some more supports and how to talk to kids about this. Vidula, is there anything you'd like to add about that? Or
I would just say that I didn't seek conversation, but I didn't avoid it. So in 6th grade, if it came up, we discussed whatever came up, but it really hasn't very much in the Google Meets I've been having. They seem to be much more focused on what they need to do, and really in talking to each other and seeing each other. So I had one meet, which was like, we're gonna talk about the choice board, bring your pets, let's meet your pets. And sometimes people bring their siblings too, and they'll introduce, and we say hi to whoever's there. It's part social emotional, right? The connection piece,
yeah.
and part discussion. But overtly, I haven't had a lot of students ask. I do run the journalism club at our school, and we've been meeting online. We actually meet online on Fridays. And so there I've had some students write articles. So I know like they choose what they want to write about. So one pair is writing about things to do while you're at home. Another pair has decided to do, what are things you miss, and what are things that you really have appreciated, about being home. So coming to class in pajamas, those kind of, I think some of my kids have said, time to devote to personal projects. I mean, they're cognizant and able to speak about it, but I think a lot of that will depend on what's happening in the community. Manchester and Essex, where I teach, there have been some cases, but it's relatively low. And so I think that's why the trends are in this direction. It may be different, for a different location. I know where I live, it's mid-trend, so I don't hear my own children talking to their teachers about it. But it's not because no one said you can't.
Yeah. So one thing I'd love to do with the little bit of time we have remaining is just quickly show folks how you can make your own workspace. And so if you go to our navigator at lvp.digitalpromiseglobal.org, you can choose the Learning Needs Explorer. And here you can choose which learner model you are most interested in and create a login. And as you go through, you can select factors that you're most interested in addressing. This can be for a group of students, or maybe it's centered around an upcoming lesson, or you're thinking about parents and how to equip them with certain things. Once you select a few factors, it will show you other factors that may be related to that. And so you can click on those if you want, or skip them. Then it will give you strategies that support all of the factors you selected, and strategies that support some of those factors. And so if we're creating one for parents, we might kind of look through these strategies with a certain eye for which ones would be best. And you can add those to a workspace here, and whatever the strategies are, then you can explore. I'll just pick a few more. You can explore these strategies in a workspace, and here you can move strategies around and reorganize them. You can also add notes here, why the strategy, use tips, include like Google Classroom references or whatever here. You can retitle it and things like that. And so again, like Katie mentioned, this can be a great way to communicate with parents and kind of share strategies that equip them. And so you're welcome to use the Share Her workspace or some of the others that we've put in the chat, and kind of make them your own. And and also we'll link directions for how to create a workspace in there. So that went by a little too fast, you can follow those directions there. To close out, I'd love to just kind of hear from you guys is kind of what are you thinking about in terms of like either supporting parents and families as you kind of close out the year into the summer, or how you're maybe thinking about what you would do next year, supporting kids coming back who we know now have had different range of experiences, have been out of school for a long time. Like, what are kind of some of your thoughts, like looking ahead?
For us, it's so different teaching kids with whom we've had a relationship and then we've gone into remote learning. For next year, we're going to be teaching kids coming in from 2 different elementary schools to our 6 through 12 building. So we've started this year by, well, not started this year, but at the end of this year, we usually do a welcome where they visit and they do some team building activities. Since they couldn't visit our building, our 6th grade is creating posters and messages for them, which we're going to string together into one video that will be shared with parents and students of the incoming 6th grade. In addition, we teachers have done a welcome video because they really aren't seeing our faces. The only way they're going to get to know us is through these videos right now. And we have avoided talking about the content of our class and what they might be doing next year because it might be remote. Instead, we focused on ourselves, fun facts about us, and just, being welcoming, being warm. And finally, I do Who Am I Cahoots with my class in 6th grade. And so I suggested that as a way of further getting to know their teachers, we could do some teacher Who Am I Cahoots that can then be sent home. And the kids, if they want to, on a Kahoot, you can play it over and over and over. So they can, if they want, learn one fact about each teacher. So all the 6th grade teachers have given me questions with their incorrect and correct answers. I'm going to attach it to a picture of each teacher that's from our website. We have like a, Meet the Staff website. And then the kids will have a chance to play that in real time, but they can also access it asynchronously so that they can learn about us a little more. And we'll do more of this when they come to the building in September, either in person or virtually, to get to know them. What about you, Katie? I'm curious.
I love your answer. Those are the Kahoot sounds. I wrote it down. I was like, oh, I'm writing that down. It's a great idea. I just will continue to, for me, yes, our school ends June 4th, but I always say once a Mucci kid, always a Mucci kid. And I know where you live. So I will show up in your driveway. I have been doing that. I have a megaphone that I sing happy birthday to them and just, show up and they're like, why is my teacher in my driveway? I'm like, I know, here I am. But they love it, and so I'll continue to do those birthday songs over the summer because I usually celebrate summer birthdays before summer hits. And, I don't find out my class roster until like the week before school starts. So that will be a challenge for me over the summer. How am I going to reach out to all of them, get to know me? I love Screencastify. I'm loving videos. I do Facebook Lives all the time with my kids in the driveway. Watch us, we're singing the taco song right now. It's raining tacos. That's our favorite song. I'll Facebook Live while I'm doing that. And the kids are just like, that's so funny. But building that connection so that they already feel safe, they feel comfortable with me when they walk through the door. And I will continue to use Facebook next year with my parents if that's the platform that they say is best for them.
I think that's so great. Thank you both so much. I really appreciate you joining us today. And it's been great to kind of hear your perspective on things. As we close out, I did just want to share that we do have learner variability micro-credentials available for those of you that are looking for some professional development over the summer. And so you can find our stack at the microcredentials.digitalpromise.org site. And if you have any questions or interested in learning more or ways that we can support you and your school, we're happy to do webinars and show you ways that the Navigator can help you. So please feel free to contact us at lvppartners@digitalpromise.org. Thank you so much. We really appreciate everyone for joining us today. And thanks again to Vidula and Katie. It was great to talk with you today.
Yes, thanks for having me, and everyone, best of luck, well wishes. Take care.
Yeah, this is actually a different journey than we signed up for, but you know, we're teachers and we are at our best when we're all over the place. So
Yes.
I think, you know, continuing to take risks and forgive yourself too. Like you don't, you know, do what you can and learn from it and move on and love. And I think the kids, KD, I really feel this. I mean, how the students feel really drives how they take risks and how they learn. So building that joy and learning, you know, getting to know the parents and getting to know the kids. That's like know your audience. It's the best. Enjoy your the rest of your year. We're here. We're going till middle of June, June 18th or 19th.
Wow.
So yeah. So and good luck next year. We'll see what the adventure holds.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.